And we're in. Hey, what up, everybody?
Blog Talk Radio.
Don't interrupt me, lady. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. I am DJ Lou in attendance with the one and only James, the Constitutionalist. How you doing, James?
Good, very good. Thanks for having me.
How does it feel being on the show, man?
Good.
Don't lie.
Well,
James, the one and only, man. I look up to you, man. Give him a round of applause. This guy's got some experience, people.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're a good guy to have on the show. So how you doing, first of all?
Really good.
Life's treating you good. Life's good. What do you think about these politics?
Life is good. Well, that's not good. But, you know, with that said, where can you begin?
Have you been watching the Republican debates and the Democrat debates?
Been watching them, and I've been trying to find drugs to keep me awake through them. No, I'm just kidding.
Nice.
I've never seen such drizzle before. Just non-significant talk about things that...
I feel the same way. I'm listening in, I'm going, what exactly are you on? What is your mission? What are you really here for? And who sent you here, mister? Or Mrs.? I feel like they're all puppets. But anyway, what would you like to see in a president?
Well, I think that there are really four main qualifications that a president has to have. Mm-hmm. And one of them is not lying, although they all seem to have that qualification really good, down really good.
Well, let me stop you right there. Because a president cannot be 100% truthful when it comes to classified information. We can't just spill the beans on what's going on with other enemies, such as who we have beef with right now, Russia.
Well, we got, ISIL, we got some problems with Russia, China.
It's sad, too, because I say we're at beef with Russia when Russia are the people that are trying to fight off ISIS, the job that we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and I think, it always comes down to, the application and the motives. They have different motives than we do, but yet we have the same enemy. And, that's why there's that saying, the friend of my enemy, or the enemy of my friend is my friend. Mm-hmm. So it's difficult to say where we're at. But I think what happens is that in any kind of government, you end up with people trying to cover up things that they shouldn't. And so they put that cloak of national secret on it, and I think there's far fewer national secrets out there than what we're being told.
Right. I'm with you on a president that's being truthful to the population, the American population. I don't know about the world, because we do have to protect ourselves and not give out too much information. But when I hear the president saying one thing and doing another thing, it kind of upsets me. And it's like, I always go back to the Titanic. You don't want to scare too many people. You don't want to let them know that the ship is sinking. Let's try to keep everyone calm before we go down under. So I proposed, and I know this sounds nuts, but I think that a politician should wear a GoPro wherever they're at. It sounds nuts. Like, what the
camera? Yeah, no, it makes sense.
I want to know who you really are. I'm a big skeptic now because of all the politicians' lies. The Democrat, Republican, also known as the Republicans and the Democrips, like Jesse Ventura said, they're just two big gangs. Yeah. Two big gangs that beat up on everybody.
Yep.
But the GoPro idea was only thought of by me because I'm a truth seeker and I'd like to know who you are. I know there's a privacy issue, but if you're going to be held to a higher standard and you're in control of big decisions, I think you should. I mean, you shouldn't be in office for your whole life. You should be there in and out, a couple years. Let's see what you got. If you're really good, then we'll probably vote for your family members in the near future. But if you are full of crap like the Bushes, who I believe are Masons and evil, and it's a lot to say. It's a lot to say, but I feel like we went to a war that wasn't necessary. We destroyed a country that made a lot of money for some people. Halliburton, a company that rebuilds countries after they've been destroyed. And war does make money. War is the economy, right? Making parts, making missiles, making supplies, sending troops over there and paying them a ton of money to do it.
And you got to think, too, war creates the need for production, because part of war is destroying the assets of the other people or the enemy.
Wow.
So now you have to rebuild houses and rebuild automobiles that have been bombed. So, war kind of feeds both sides in the economy.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you go back, you can go back to the early part of the century. I mean, you can even go further and find more, but I think maybe our listeners will only be really interested in maybe the last 100 years. But I mean, you think about some of the promises that were made. You know, Wilson made promises when he was being elected.
Woodrow
Wilson. You know, Hoover made the promise. Actually, it was the Republican Party as the super PACs back then. For Hoover said a chicken in every pot and a car in every garage, and you know, it really wasn't Hoover, but it was the super PACs at the time that made this campaign motto. And then what happened? Well, you know, we ended up getting into a depression, and what happened to that promise? You know, now, you know, you can get into all kinds of stories of what started the depression, but I mean, you can go even to Theodore Roosevelt, who said on radio, you know, I promise you, you know, I've been asked, I think the quote is very close to something like, you know, I've been asked over and over again, and I tell you again and again, I'm not going to send your boys to war. Just 3 or 4 months after, you know, the election, you know, he ended up sending troops into the war. Now, yeah, we were attacked by Japan, and, you know, there was a lot of stuff going on. You know.
Wasn't he the only president that ever got 3 terms?
Yeah, actually, he had 4 terms. He died in his 4th term.
4 terms.
4 terms.
The people out there listening right now, we got a couple of callers, but I mean, if you guys think Obama can't get a 3rd term, you have bumped your head and fell down, or you're stupid. I'm just trying to say that President Obama has something up his sleeve, and this, which I want to go into the Syria thing because of what happened in Paris and the refugees and a lot of talk about. But the thing that scares me is Syria's refugees, who 10,000 of them I don't know. I don't know if you know them. It's a lot of people.
Yeah.
What better way to ship them overseas into America? And I know people go, man, have some heart. Don't you understand what's going on? I do understand what's going on. And it's because of us. It's because of the war machine. But going back to the Syrian refugees, what better way to bring them to a country that they know nothing about, probably hate because of all the rumors they hear of what we do. And we don't do it. We do with our tax dollar, unfortunately. But what better way to attack the country in the States? And then Obama can do what Paris is doing right now, go door to door, stop people from using their weapons. They don't have weapons over there. Some do for fishing and hunting and stuff like that. But what better way to declare war on the States and extend his ability to be president? Does that make sense?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's certainly plausible. I mean, will it happen? I don't know. I don't think.
Come on, man.
Like
you've been on the planet for quite some time.
I've been on the planet for quite some time, and I think that there are still some absolutes in our laws that we still hold true to.
There's the president, though, because he goes to war without declaring a war. He just goes.
Yeah, you know, there are the War Power Acts, and they have been limited a little bit since Bush. But I do remember the talk of Bush, you know, when it came time for the election, and there was all this talk about, he's not going to step down. You know, he's going to try and get a 3rd term there. He's going to deny the Constitution.
But what happened, though? The people were pissed.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what kind of gives me the conclusion that I believe Ben Carson, I should say this already, but I'm already going to say it. I think Ben Carson is going to win president because America does not want to go back to the McCain, the angry guy. That's why McCain lost, because he kept losing his temper during the debates. He kept losing his temper during the questions. And what is Trump doing, who is a hothead? He's doing the same thing, and he's demanding this is going to happen, and I'm going to do it this way, without even trying to reason or have compassion towards something. He's just pissed.
Yeah.
And he's trying to use that emotion for the angry Americans out there that are sick and tired of what's going on. And I understand. I'm the same way. But when it comes down to making big decisions with our neighbors, our allies, our enemies, is that the best thing to do, to say, you know, Russia wants to do this, we're not going to let them? I mean, that sounds silly, especially because we're supposed to be going after ISIS when Russia is doing that for us because we're too lazy to get off our asses. I don't know what's going on. I don't know how Russia can eliminate tons of ISIS members. I've seen videos of bombings and just wiping everyone out. Where America, how long have we been trying to do this?
Yeah, it's an interesting situation, and right now I don't think there's the mood in our country to go against ISIS with ground troops.
What do you mean by that?
I think the mood in their country now is they're kind of tired of war. Americans are war weary, and that's a great expression there.
What expression?
You know, that they're war weary in that we've been fighting wars for so long that they're just I believe most Americans are saying, you know, if there was another 9/11, so in Paris, that was France's 9/11, so to speak. You know, France really hadn't been doing a lot in the war on terror, and now, you know, they've had their 9/11. They've kind of stepped it up. I mean, if something were to happen like that over here, you know, is this one way, like you were saying, to create something over here by allowing Syrian refugees
Scare
to come
tactics.
over? Yeah.
Well, I was going to say,
I don't know.
I want to jump in by saying that you kind of compared it to 9/11, and some would argue that the Syrians, the refugees, kind of scattered that way, and that they might be responsible. A lot of people are probably going to get pissed off at me for saying that. I'm not saying that's true at all. It's just kind of me guessing right now why that would happen, and from what I've heard. But none of those people were armed in Paris. So you had guys going into, a hall? They were having like a concert, and they just came in there and just locked the doors. How did that work? And they just shot everybody up, killed everybody.
Well, there's some things about Europe that doesn't really get talked about much over here.
Talk about it.
And well, you know, we all know about the country Belgium, correct?
No.
Yeah, well, there's a country in Europe called Belgium. You know, it's used to be part of the Prussian Empire, and there's some interesting things about Belgium that I don't really understand why they're like that, but they have an international reputation of being armed dealers. They had an international reputation of being armed dealers when we were fighting our Civil War.
Are you saying that they supplied weapons?
They supply weapons, and it's well known. There are neighborhoods that you can go into Belgium, and you can get whatever type of weapon you want. And this is not something that's unknown. This is why the terrorists that we were chasing, you know, were headed towards Belgium. This is why a lot of them came from Belgium, because they know that they can get into Belgium, they can deal with acquisitions of weapons.
That could never happen here in Texas. That could never happen in America. It did happen in America. It happened in Colorado. It happened in Aurora. No, that wasn't. What was that other place?
Aurora, yeah.
Sandy Hook.
Sandy Hook. And I think what we tend to do is, and I think we do this just naturally as humans, we kind of put everybody in one barrel because it's easy, right? Why should we carry 10 different barrels when we can just put everything in one barrel? And then today we just get a big machine that can carry it for us. We don't have to do any work, right? But when I'm using that analogy, what I'm trying to say is that, you know, what's happened in America, like with Sandy Hook, you know, we're talking about mentally deranged individuals, and the derangement comes from social ideology. Now, you know, when we talk about the Muslims and the things that they're doing, the radical Muslims, that's a religious ideology. And, you know, what could be more insane than, you know, killing for God, right? And so we don't seem to want to, you know, separate the idea of social and religious ideology and the extremes that come in those and the type of people that are involved in it. In some ways, I understand what Obama is saying, and I do believe, you know, when he was talking in the Philippines, that we do have to work at the root of the recruiting. You know, why is it that people can be recruited into these crazy ideas?
Because we supply them?
Well, I think what happens is that I think what happens is that you know, we all reach a limit. And
when you say that, what do you mean?
Well, at some point, you know, we all say, I'm not going to take anymore. You know, I've had enough, whatever it may be. Some people can take more than others. Myself, you know, if I don't get my food ordered at the right time and delivered at the right time, I had enough and I ain't tipping.
You get angry.
I get angry.
You want to knock them out.
Yeah. There are others who say, you know what, I'm told that I can't drive and drink, and that's enough for me. Others are told, you know, I can't go to heaven because, you know, I love another man. That's enough for me, right? And so we don't really know where those limits are, but they're all there for all of us. And that's kind of what we see happen. We see just this insane ideology. And
From who?
From radical Muslims. From
what about the radical Christian though, with the drones in the
Christians?
air?
Well,
President Bush
yeah.
saying that he spoke with God before he invaded Iraq.
Exactly.
Which Osama bin Laden, last time I checked, wasn't in that country. But
no, exactly. Those are the kinds of things that you really got to wonder about. The thing that gets me, you know, there are Christians out there who actually think it's all right to kill abortion doctors. Not too much different than Muslims think it's all right to kill Christians.
you're killing a baby.
Yeah,
I'm going to get you.
know, if you kill me, I kill you, and so
Doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any
Or
sense at all.
they support the death penalty when they don't support abortions. It's like you're still killing.
Yeah. It's so fragmented, and a lot of it is you know where we are directing our efforts with our young people, and what we are showing, you know, our leaders are people that we're supposed to be looking up to in society. I mean, you think about, I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but I mean, look at what priests have done. You know, look what the police are doing as far as shooting people, beating. I mean, we can go on. Look what's happening with politicians. Look at their behavior. Just unbelievable.
I know this is a reality. I know it happens every day, but I think the mainstream media has an agenda with the Black Lives Matter. I think that was something that was taken over by big money. I don't think that's something that would grow as big without the mainstream media. And they have a big influence on what divides people.
They do.
And I see pictures all the time. I see videos. I posted one on Facebook of a black guy arguing with a white woman, saying that, you know, the white woman said that these kids, they're out of control and they need some discipline, and the police, they need to do that. And then he's like, you don't understand the urban community. So it's just like, what are you guys fighting over? They're just dividing us that way. They're just getting us all pissed off. I understand police have a tough position, and I also understand there's police that are abusing that position. We cannot let the media shove that down our throats, especially to the ignorant, but it happens every day. And it's going to continue to happen until we remove it.
Right. And, you know, media has an interest. You were talking about the black man and the white woman. You know, they're arguing, hey, that's great. You know, you saw that. But if the white woman took out a gun and shot the black man, or vice versa, then it'd be on the news. Yeah. And why would they put it on the news? Because people are going to watch it. And if people watch it, they get to sell advertising, and they get to make money. And people think that, you know, oh, that's not really what happened. But let's take a look at Dan Rather. Okay, look at all the things that he got in trouble for with falsifying the news. I mean, we could always go back to 60 Minutes with the Chevy truck and the gas tank blowing up, where they couldn't get the truck to blow up every time they rolled it or hit it.
I remember that.
So what did they have to do? And you could even go with the recent newscaster who said he was in a helicopter during Desert Storm, and well, that wasn't true. But what that does is it creates a stimulation in people's minds to want to know what's happening, and they're going to tune in and watch. And the only way the news is going to get paid is if they get more people to watch.
Hype everyone up. That's what TMZ does. They have to show any type of naked body part of a woman, or who threw up on stage, or anything they can do to insult and criticize and have you laughing at this person because it amuses. I don't understand, but I kind of get it. When I was a teenager, I was stupid as hell, so I could understand what this television is doing. Do you think that, I remember a thing called false advertisement.
Yeah.
What happened to that?
Well, you know, it's like anything else. It's gotten turned over to the Justice Department. You know, it's been turned over to our legal side of the dark side of our society, and now it just takes so much to be able to go after something like that. I mean, you have to see, like with the news, and this is a real important part. You have to see how the salaries for these people that are in news, not just the people who are in front of the camera, but the people behind the camera. You know, you're getting into hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars a year in salaries, and of course the taxes that go along with it, and the equipment that they buy, and the studios, and it's just this huge beast that has to be fed. And so they used to falsify the news, and like you said, they got caught a couple times, and they realized, you know, falsifying the news or creating the stimulation so that people tune in, whether it's true or not, is just not enough. So now you watch the news here in America, and they're advertisements.
Wow.
You know, there's like, you watch the Channel 5 News or Channel 7 News. Channel 7 News will talk about Disneyland. because they're owned by Disneyland. You talk to Channel 5, and Sam Rubin is doing a whole
That's funny you say that, because
issue on a show that's on,
I'm looking at the endorsements for these politicians that are running for president. And Time Warner is, where is it at? Coca-Cola endorses Ben Carson. Time Warner endorses, I believe, Hillary Clinton. So these people are fed by the corporations.
Yes.
It's nuts. So let's talk more about the two-party system, and why is it only two parties that get to debate? Why can't we have a third party? The last time we've had a third party was 20 years ago.
Yeah, and
Ross Perot.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I really don't think that there's two parties. There's only one party. And I think until we realize that, I don't think we'll be able to make inroads to more parties. I mean, we have Federalists. That is the party. Democrats and Republicans are both Federalists, and there's really not much difference between the two of them. And as long as we think that there is a difference, and as long as they occupy our mind with this appearance of a conflict, we're really not going to move anywhere. And here's the example that I give you. Look at Obama. Okay, so Obama talked about, this is another campaign promise. He talked about trade and cap. He talked about reducing carbon levels. He's been against the pipeline from Canada down to Texas. And if you were to look at what he tells us, you would think that he's this anti-oil, pro-environment kind of guy. But then let's really look at what's happening. U.S. oil production is at an all-time high.
Ugh.
We are now...
Where are we drilling, though?
Well, we're not really drilling a lot of new places. We're taking a lot of old oil wells and
sucking them dry.
Yeah, we're using fracture. We're using steam injection to fracture rock to get more of the oil out. But the truth of the matter, Obama is the biggest oil president. He is bigger than Johnson was, who was a Texan. He is bigger than the Bushes were, who are Texans.
Really?
Yeah.
Where'd you find this information?
This information, you can go online and you can look at any of the Department of Energy. We are now at the highest level, or we were a year ago, at the highest level of oil production ever in the United States.
Wow.
And we've been doing a lot of.
What does this mean for the economy? Because I thought we were doing good. I thought we were doing bad.
Here's the thing. There's a lot of stuff when you look at oil. Oil is the key to our economy. And if you look at oil, you look at kind of what's been going on. You have to kind of analyze everything that's in its totality. In total, you have to kind of look at what Russia was doing in Ukraine, and you got to realize that Russia was strangling Europe for oil, because a lot of the oil that Europe got came from the Ukraine.
And did they just give it to them, or did the Russians just take it like we do?
The Russians sold it. The Russians sold it.
Nice.
But they were saying that as a tool of blackmail, do what we want you to do, or else you're not going to get oil.
Yeah.
So the United States kind of said, well, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to ramp up our production, and we're going to show you that you can't blackmail Europe.
Nice.
So this is what I'm talking about. There's not a lot of national secrets out there. They want to say there's a lot of national secrets that can't be, put out there. But these are the things that they don't want to talk to us about. They want to put an opinion out there that makes it look like they're a certain way, but the reality of what they're doing is totally different. And if you look at that pipeline, he keeps saying, oh, there's no need for it. And everybody's going, yeah, and all the jobs we're going to create and all that. But then if you look at what's happened to oil production, the reason why oil is so cheap is because our production levels got so high that Saudi Arabia, the other OPEC, had a choice. Do they cut their production in order to limit the supply? But they'll lose market share if they do that. Or do they continue with the production that they've had? Their choice was to continue with the production that they had. They thought that they could outrun America on the oil.
Yeah.
Which they kind of have. We're starting to pull back on oil production. If you're seeing the price of oil, it's now at $40 a barrel. which 4 years ago it was over 100. I think it was like 108. And so it's now $40 a barrel. So what you're seeing now is the United States pulling back. But what the United States was able to do is to show the world, look, we can still produce oil, which means we can still run our war machine and take care of our allies.
Wow. Let's take a call. 310, you've been on hold. What's up, man? You're on the podcast with Lou and James. What's up? 310.
Doing tonight?
Who's this?
Yeah, I'm right here. This is Corey in the confines of my skin.
What's up, Corey? How you doing, man?
Hey, Corey. Good to hear from you.
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. How you guys doing?
Good. Who are you voting for 2016?
I don't vote because I'm not a resident. Resident is actually a term that a lot of people don't know. You know, we live in a world right now where a lot of people aren't really sure about what they're talking about. You know, you guys are talking about politics. You know, at first, I want to commend you guys that you guys are stepping out and you guys are actually talking about something that's pertinent information.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Outside of the distractions that everybody else is in. Because, you know, it's important that we become more informed, you know, as a collective. But at the same time, with all due respect, I think it's important to be thorough. And I think it's important to put it out there that you guys are still being misled in a big way with what you guys are talking about.
Break it down for us, brother.
You guys mentioned United States. Okay. You guys mentioned United States a lot of times, you know, just in this conversation. And I think the problem is that we sit here and we pontificate about a dog and pony show that goes on every year of our lives, you know. And a lot of people, just the way we've been indoctrinated and we've been brought up, there's certain things that we've been taught to just take blindly and never question.
Right.
You know, in first grade, we were taught don't ever question authority, right? But at the end of the day, the authority is not man. You know, it's not man overseeing the people. The authority is ourselves. And I think the problem is that people are misled. And they're indoctrinated and brought up in a way, you know, to not really take advantage, not take responsibility for themselves, their actions, and everything.
Yeah, let me ask you a question though.
Diverted that way.
Let me ask you a question real quick. You say, just let me ask you, going back to what you said. Let me ask you a question. You said the authority is ourselves. So then, are you saying,
right,
if the authority is us, what do we have authority over? In other words, do we only control what we do, or do we influence others?
I mean, I believe that all of us inherently have a right to self-determination.
Okay.
And making our own decisions.
Okay.
And I think we set the example depending on how we live, and we all have an obligation as a part of humanity to set the bar high on a positive level, you know, and try to positively set the example of, you know, a destination for people to go that's more conducive for all aspects of their life.
I can understand that, yeah.
I just wanted to say this. You guys mentioned United States a lot.
Yes.
The problem is that we were taught that United States is the same thing as America, right?
Correct, yes.
Wow.
I can tell that you guys are informed and you guys have done your research. But one of the things that I've realized, you know, during my research and what I've looked into is that there's lots of different layers and levels to people's epiphanies and their realizations of what's really true.
Yes.
Know?
Yes.
So when we speak,
let me cut you off real quick.
From a standpoint of what we currently know.
I agree. I agree with that.
I agree with that to a degree, because when you say truth, you know, it is in the eye of the beholder. You know, no matter how much we try to manipulate our history, it's kind of like asking if were you there when, you know, the Indians were around. I'm hearing like twisted different ideologies and how white people were actually here first. And I'm hearing like so many different stories. It's just mind boggling all the time. So what I go by, man, and how I live, and I could only speak on where I'm at, the United States, is that we do need leadership. I mean, I don't like when people say that, you know, we can't have any leaders, man. We just need to all live our lives. That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't think you're saying that, but I hear people say that, and I go, we got to have some leadership in our lives.
Well, I think we inherently have the obligation to lead ourselves and follow a level of responsibility, self-responsibility, and
I agree with that.
Contribution to our communities.
And let me tell you,
everybody the arbitrary ability to lead us or dictate to us. More times than not, you can take this all the way back to history. They're always going to mislead us.
Right, and
I think what you were saying about the GoPro real quick.
Oh, the
I think
GoPro.
That's good. I think that's a great idea.
Thank you, sir.
GoPro president.
They should have accountability.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
They should be. You know, they should have a webcam on them like the NSA is on us.
Wow.
You know, their whole time in office.
Yeah.
I think they should be the Truman Show.
I agree. I agree.
You said Truman Show.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I totally agree. You know, I think there's an old adage for that. You know, it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. If you watch me, why can't I watch you?
Right.
You know, but let me tell you a quick little story here. Hopefully you got a couple seconds to listen to this. And this goes back to what you were talking about as far as our interpretations. It's a quick story. So on my block there are 3 houses. In one house there's a mother and a father, and they work for private industry, and they rent their house. They have 1 car. Their kids go to public school, and then in the next house to them, the mother and the father, one works for the government and the other works for private industry, and you know they have somewhat of a good house household as far as, you know, they own their house, they have, you know, a lot of nice furniture, they have a couple cars, but their kids still go to public school. The third house on the block, both the mother and the father work for the government. They have excellent retirement, excellent medical benefits. They have not only new cars, but they have a 5th wheel. They have a real great, you know, respect for America and how wonderful it is.
Is this a true story?
And this is a true story. And so what you see is how we are all led by our experiences. And if you were to talk to any one of those people in those houses, they would all tell you what's great and what's bad. It'd be very difficult, you know, to hear the household with the 2 government workers saying anything bad about, you know, the hand that fed them. Whereas if you go to the other house on the other side where they work for private industry, yeah, they would have a lot to say about government being bad because, you know, they have very poor health care, very poor retirement, their wages are very low, they can't afford to buy a house. And so these are the things that we do have to take into consideration when we hear people talk, like you say, you know, about what the influences are, but we have to understand that those influences are all real to them.
Yes. So are you the guy that's poor?
Yeah.
Are you the one with the beat up car and
I'm the one with the beat up car, can't afford the house.
Did you want to say something?
I think according to, I just wanted to comment on that real quick.
Go ahead.
I think we can debate anything from any angle. You know, that the English language is very versatile and very interchangeable. And, you know, it comes from Greek, where the definitions aren't even the same. You know, so I think a lot of people need to comprehend etymology and the words that they're actually using. You know, we spell words. You know, we need to look at the foundation of this landmass and who created it.
Wow.
And how they created it. You know, to really comprehend where we're going, we need to know where we came from. You know, and I think that applies to a lot of different elements. I just want to sneak this in real quick because
Go ahead.
I don't think we need to debate about everything that they want us to debate about and pontificate about back and forth from our individual viewpoints or interests or what we support or what our family supported or whatever, you know. I think it needs to be said like this. The United States is a private corporation. You were talking about corporations that are endorsing Hillary Clinton and
Carson.
Bernie Sanders and whoever else. Well, at
Yes.
the end of the day, those corporations are them. I mean, that's their corporations. I mean, if they own the United States Corporation, if they're under that, they work for that, which is 28 U.S.C. 3002. Anybody can go look it up and see what the United States actually is. It doesn't say the word America, it doesn't say the word country, and it doesn't say the word government. Government is actually, when you break it apart, controlling the mind. Because ment comes from mentis in Greek, and mentis means mind. So I think it's important for people, to comprehend what it is that they're saying, who they're saying it to, and what message they're actually delivering, and not get lost in translation, because we do that all the time.
Yeah, we're stuck in a pickle right now.
At the end of the day,
We're stuck in this pickle where words are slang terms like swag and selfie, and we're starting to lose the idea of a word because it's so bastardized nowadays. And you got the older people like myself kind of stuck in our old ways. We don't really want to. I had to force myself to open my mind, and thanks to marijuana and other things, I was able to, really put my mind out there and say, what am I doing on this planet? Okay, first of all, I'll just be thinking in my mind, all bottled up, like, what am I doing on this planet? So I'm just talking to myself all the time. Wherever I go, I'm always thinking. My brain doesn't turn off. I don't space out. I'm always thinking, always just wondering and trying to put words together like you were just saying. I did a show about words and how they're broken up and they're no longer what they meant back in the day, and they're a lot different nowadays. So I don't know what I'm rambling about. I'm just doing a lot of this right now.
And you got to understand that the people that you're talking about back in the day, which I belong to, we're trying to communicate with what we understood was common for communication. And we're trying to talk in a world that has changed its idea of what's common for communication. And it's not just the application like cell phones and texting. There's a lot of words that I use that, my kids always ask me, well, what does that mean?
You got a big vocabulary.
And, it's one of those things that, we have to always be looking at is to really, what does that mean?
But let me ask the caller real quick. Corey, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Corey, right now James is going out talking about applications and stuff. I believe our brains are like computers, if not a higher hybrid of computers, where we can be programmed and instilled with information that stays with us for a very long time. I was told that if you indoctrinate a kid for 6 years to go to Catholic church for the rest of their lives, that kid's going to believe in Catholicism? Catholicism. What the hell am I saying? And I fully believe in brainwashing and indoctrination are the same exact thing. I mean, there's not much of a difference. And it's not like it's a bad thing. I believe in morality. I believe that these applications or these programs that are installed into us can lead us in a better path to life, a longevity of life, where you said take control of your own life. Well, what if no matter what you say, you're going to be following something as you grow older. As you're a kid, you're looking up to everybody, man.
Yeah, but it doesn't need to be the same song and dance that we've been following blindly our whole life.
So what do you recommend?
I believe, well, I don't know what it was that inspired you to wake up. You said that, you kind of inspired yourself and forced yourself to have an open mind.
Marijuana.
And I think that's a big problem with the world is that a lot of people marijuana, that's a good thing, as long as it's not genetically modified and federally mandated.
It's getting there.
That.
It's coming around the corner, man.
No, I already seen that coming.
Yep.
But, yeah, the thing is, like I said, the United States is a private corporation with the 10 square miles of D.C. and the territory subject to the jurisdiction thereof. If people go back and they read books and they read literature and they actually look at what things are as opposed to how they're told to us, I think they would see a whole different story than what they were told or what they were taught.
Yeah, because
at the end of the day, when you take our society, everything is under the United States, right?
Right, and you know the
Name a government piece of paper that says America on it.
right, and that's an interesting point, because you know there's the old saying, you know, to the victor goes the spoils, but also there's to the victor goes history. And if you take a look at that 10 square miles, which you're talking about, you look at all the monuments there. All those monuments are to Federalists. You have Thomas Jefferson. You have Lincoln. Those are all Federalists. There's only one monument to a constitutionalist, which was George Washington. The Federalists won, and so they're rewriting history. So what you're talking about, as far as, you know, we're only being told what they want us to know, is very true.
Right.
Republicans are Federalists, and so are Democrats. They believe in the ultimate power of the corporation, the federal government, the, you know, corporation of the United States, whatever you want to call it. They both believe in the ultimate power.
And sometimes I feel like we're talking a different language to kids out there, and teenagers and young adults who already have a kid and on welfare. How do they relate to this? How can they understand what the hell we're talking about? And how can they get involved? You just mentioned the winner of it gets to write history. Well, let's call her on the, Corey was saying, let's break that word, his story. Yeah. Let's break these words up and let's really try to figure out what they mean.
Right, and govern is control. Ment comes from the Greek word mentis, which means mind. So anytime somebody talks about government, they're actually talking about mind control.
Right. How they
and when you realize that government is just a corporation, you want to say that there's no government. But when you look around your society and you see TV and you see, you know, the VH1 awards and MTV awards and
it's all garbage.
Fictional,
the Oscars,
Minutia Maxima signs everywhere you go.
And that's the downfall right there, dude.
There's
is that
a lot of government.
The downfall of it is that the TV wasn't like that before. I mean, I remember Fred Rogers, Sesame Street. I remember the Ninja Turtles. Like these shows weren't perverted or bastardized. They were good shows that brought up kids like in a decent way. Where today you got Family Guy for kids, and you got NWA that people like to play still. Where was I getting at with this? We were talking about, but see, you're talking about government like it's always a bad thing. I mean, if we can't work as a society together and have at least a blueprint of what's good, how do we expect to get along? And especially with the drug problem we're having, that's like the biggest damage to a computer, our brains, as we speak. That's
it's a virus.
It's a virus, exactly.
It's a virus. And, you know,
I think
society needs governing. And I just would like to speak a little bit on what you were saying as far as the Corporation of America, that I think, you know, we need to let people know of the United States. We do need to let people know that it is a huge corporation, and people will be the first to say how much money oil companies make. You know, how much money they make. They're just making money for hands over fist. But if you look at how much money government makes off of oil, you know, the government's not doing anything to get that money in taxes except put their hands out. I mean, if you look at what the cost of a gallon of gasoline costs, you know, about a third of the price goes to producing, about a third of the price goes to the profit for the oil companies, and a third of the price goes to taxes.
Break that down in layman's terms, because I'm feeling like kids are going to be like, huh?
So if you've got a $3 gallon of gas, it takes $1 to get that gallon of gas to the pump so it can be put in your car. And the oil companies take about $1 in profit, and that's oil companies, the gas stations, so and so. But the government takes about $1 as well. So when you talk about how much ExxonMobil makes, or, you know, BP, you know, the government is making just as much money. And you ask yourself, I ask myself all the time, why aren't there any trains to the airports? Why is there not a nonstop train that goes from LA to Sacramento? You got to get on a bus. You know, but we're talking about a bullet train, right? I mean, when you go to an airport, you see huge parking structures. You know, why is that? Who owns those parking structures? Well, it's the government. And the buses that go to the airports got to buy diesel fuel. It puts tax money into the pocket of government. And the taxis, and on and on. And you're realizing that there's really not a system there that eliminates the money that flows into the corporation of the United States. It's huge. If you think the oil companies are making money, and you got to realize that our government is doing that with healthcare. They're doing it with information technology. They're doing it with aerospace. Think of all with banking. All these industries, the government's got their hand out and is raking in cash. More money. We talk about how evil the banks are. Well, the government is pulling in more money from those banks than the banks are making themselves, if you look at it in its totality.
We got James in the house. Give me a mic check.
Check, Mike.
Whoa, my ears exploded. All right, we're
back.
We're back. Okay, guys, we're back. We're talking about the next president of the United States of America, and I think you are going to endorse Donald Trump.
Yes, I am.
How dare you?
I'm waiting for that sound effect. Here it comes.
Why on earth? I mean, I'm sure you have a good answer, your experience and such, but why?
Well, I think, and I've talked to other people about this, and I really think that we're kind of United States. This last caller is going to make me not ever say America again.
I know. I'm thinking about it every time too.
Yeah. But anyway, the United States, the voters, the people here in the United States, we're kind of in a fight. We're at the beginning of a fight here, and last election, I did not vote for Obama because I felt that the statement that I made by voting for him the first time was enough. And that I believe voting for Donald Trump will be another statement, just like voting for Obama.
You voted for him the first time, right?
Yeah,
first time around?
I voted for Obama the first time around, and I felt the statement was made. And I think now it's time for another statement to be made, and that's that, sure, we want presidents that have some idea of what foreign policy is. We want presidents that can be leaders. We want presidents that... can be honest, but just like we were talking about in the last session, this is the corporation of the United States, and I think we need a president that has some financial understanding as well, some corporate.
Interesting. Let me jump in and say my piece on Mr. Punk, Donald Punk. Donald Punk is a lobbyist. Donald Punk is a spoiled little brat who was introduced to real estate from his parents or family. Now, that's a lot of crap I'm saying. I know, I'm just talking that crap. I want people to get furious and I want to try to sway you because I think that Donald Trump is all gibberish. He's all talk. He's a hothead. He's dangerous. He's a dangerous man because if you give this man power, we're going to go to war, I think. So first of all, Donald Trump wants to build a wall between the U.S. and Mexico, and he wants to deport 11 million people. Am I wrong or right about this?
You are right about this. You are right. Although, again, it's the application here that we're talking about. We really don't know. He hasn't really talked a lot about how it was going to be done. And I do know this, that it's very possible, like he was saying, to get Mexico to pay for the wall. We have to open our minds to the idea of this is not going to be a contractor is going to go to Mexico and say, write us a check because we're going to start building this wall. What's going to happen? It's going to be the old carrot and stick. And again, from being of the back in the day, the carrot and stick was something that was used quite a bit. From that came the definition of the bully pulpit, as far as the president being able to use his influence to beat people into submission, not physically, but with his position. And I think that's what we can do with Mexico. Mexico has a lot to lose if they lose our favor.
Right. I don't agree because, first of all, I don't think Donald Trump will be elected due to the fact that he's pissed off so many Hispanics. You're talking about building a wall, but who's going to build it? The Mexicans will build it, but they're not how going to pay for it because they're living in the States. You're not going to deport 11 million people. That's number two. That's insanity. You're not going to deport. What is this? Germany, where Adolf Hitler rounds up the Jews? It's not going to happen. And I do not think for 1 second that the Hispanics would vote for the guy. And we were talking about votes earlier. Well, when you can go into a voting booth and don't need an ID, you don't need any identification. Last time I went, they didn't ask me for one piece of identification.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened when Obama was running his first term? How many African Americans were going up to everybody, vote for Obama, vote for Obama?
Yeah.
And they weren't, anyone could vote. You can go there 4, 5, 6, 7 times. People were saying they were voting. The Hispanics will not vote for Donald Trump due to the fact that a lot of us are tied in with illegal immigrants. One of my best friends is an illegal immigrant. His parents are illegal immigrants. He's been here his whole damn life. He's the same age as I am. The guy can't get any type of documentation because of this country. And recently, Obama allowed him to get a driver's license. So he's able to do that.
That wasn't Obama. That was Brown, Governor Brown.
Oh, sorry about that. Governor
that's
Brown.
a state thing. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to correct
No,
you.
I think President Obama did. He said something about it's not amnesty, but it's going to be a form of helping you while you're here. Mm-hmm. And I think you are right about the California thing. Yeah. But anyway, these are some reasons why I think Donald Trump is full of bananas, but he might win. Anything could happen. This political debate thing is like watching teenagers fight at recess. It's
right.
It's insane.
And let me tell you a story about a person, and I enjoy listening to people talk. And I was talking to an individual. He is your typical lawn care individual. I don't mean to sound brash, but I was talking to him the other day about his business. And, as it turns out, he came to this country illegally. Mm-hmm. And when Reagan gave amnesty and supposedly fixed our immigration system, he applied for citizenship. And one of the things that he dreamed of was having his own business. And he knew being a citizen was going to allow him to have his own business. And so as he went through the process, he became a citizen and he started his own business. Now, he's got a really tough road because he's competing against people that were like him who now don't have to follow the rules when it comes to business. They don't have to pay the payroll taxes. They don't have to pay the minimum wage. They don't have to pay the income taxes. They don't have to have the proper licensing for the business. And so he sees now his dream of his business being eroded by what he once was, an illegal immigrant. And if you talk to him, he says, I'm voting for Trump.
Wow. That reminds me of that lady that went on stage and she's like, I'm voting for Trump. I am a Hispanic and Donald Trump is going to win. And I'm like, what the fuck are you? I found it really odd. Is somebody on the line? I hear somebody. Hello? I heard someone go, brr, 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 brr. And another thing.
I've got to ask you. I got to challenge you.
Break it down.
I got to challenge you.
Let's debate this.
What is your thought on that?
On what?
On this individual who, came to the country illegally, dreamed to start his own business, was given the opportunity to be an American with amnesty, became an American citizen or a United States citizen. Corey, if you're out there listening, I will have a hard time saying America ever again. But anyway, that's the influence you had on me. But anyway,
I think
now his business is at risk from illegal immigration.
Right. It's part of the chain, man, of coming here illegally and expecting that everything will go smooth, and it's an issue. It's a big issue. Overcrowding and inflation with our money because of they're not paying tax, and it's a problem that I understand. I'm not trying to say that every illegal immigrant should be here. That's not my side at all. I'm kind of on the fence, but when it comes down to helping people like refugees, like over in Syria and in Mexico and in everywhere in the goddamn planet, we need to do that. A lot of people don't know that it's the Asians, the Chinese that are in this country more than any other.
Correct. There are a lot. There are a lot, and
legally because they get what? They get passports through school, visas. I guess is the correct term.
Yes, H-5-1 visas. A lot of H-5-1 visas, which is the technology visas. Mm-hmm. And so, I have to say that when Trump talks about deporting 11 million people, I think one of the largest deportation triggers that we've had so far is in 2008 and 2009 when the economy went so far south. We saw hundreds of thousands, millions of illegal aliens leave this country. Now, is that something that could be done now if we were to enact and fully enforce the national check for the right to work in this country? I mean, how many people would not be able to work and say, there's no reason for me to be here, and they just leave?
So you think this is a good idea, this deportation thing? It's going to take time, you're saying, but it can be done.
It can be done. And here's the thing that I find just unbelievable. A lot of liberals will say, here I am trying to, put sides to all this. But, there's a lot of people who are for, let's say, gun control, who won't think anything impossible about the idea of outlawing guns and removing 300 million guns from the hands of citizens. But yet you talk about removing 11 million illegal aliens, all of a sudden that's impossible.
Well, hold on a second, because if I have a gun and you're telling me I have to leave, do you think it's going to be easy to pick me up and carry me into a car? I mean, I have a weapon. I can hurt you. You see someone with a gun and they're trapped in a home. Just one cop knock on the door and say, hey, you got to come out. They send a whole squad because
Correct.
It's nothing to play with.
Correct.
So I think you're apples and oranges right now. But let me show you another reason. We're playing the game of debate here on Donald Good Old Punk. I think you should watch this video and let me know how you feel about it.
I have nothing against China. I just hate that their leaders are so much smarter than our leaders. 2016, we will not be the world leader anymore. We have been always.
He's right about that. He's right about that. He said in 2016 we will no longer be in the lead with the economy, and sure enough, China has passed us up.
Right, and I love to use this example. Okay, and this gets back to some very interesting points that come to immigration. So if we look at the borderline, okay, between the South and the North, if you look at the north end of the border, or the north side of the border, we have this flourishing economy. We have people who want to come here. If you look at the south side of the border, you look at a floundering economy. Poor living conditions, social upward mobility doesn't even exist. Why is it that it's just to the north of that line or to the south of that line? That line's an imaginary line.
True.
Why is it? Well, it's because of the way things are run. Okay? And the way things are run to the south of that line don't allow for the same type of conditions that exist on the north side of that line.
But you don't think it has to do with anything with the weather? I mean,
no,
the
it
great
doesn't have
weather?
anything to do, because if I stand 2 feet to the left of the line, the weather's probably going to be pretty much the same as if I stand 2 feet to the right
But
of
you
the line.
compared it to north and south. Now you're saying left to right.
Right, or say if I go 2 feet north of the line, the weather's going to be the same as if I go 2 feet south. Now,
It's a lot warmer south. We know that.
Yes, but what Trump is saying, and to the south of the line, you have beautiful beaches, you have lots of natural resources, you have oil, you have land, you have agriculture. So it's really no different than what's to the north. It's just how it's being used. Now, with Trump saying China's going to take...
How is it being used?
Well, there's an understanding, I believe, here in the United States, that, business is the business of the United States. Meaning, for people who want to do business, come here. We will let you do business. I mean, even people who come here that are not invited can do business. They can buy a lawnmower, an edger, and a blower, put it in the back of a truck, and off they go. Okay? So it's a little bit different down in Mexico, let's say, or to the south of that line. Business is not really what they're about. In fact, if you look at the core of business in the United States, it's real estate and it's natural resources. If you go to the south of that line, you cannot develop real estate down there.
Well,
you just cannot do it.
When we talk about real estate, I mean, the housing bubble and the crash, I mean, a lot of homes are not being occupied right now.
That's correct. And you can't say that just because something bad happened, that thing is bad. Right. I mean, it's like the example with marijuana for you. There are a lot of people that have bad things happen to them when they're on marijuana, and you can't just say that marijuana is bad because of that.
I was tripping.
But it opens your mind.
Oh,
right?
It did. It made me think. It made me stop. It made me open my... I don't know if it was killing brain cells, and I was just like, I'm thinking of something, or if I was actually...
And here's an interesting point. As a citizen other than a Mexican national, You cannot own land in Mexico, but who could own land in the United States?
I thought you can. I thought if you went down to the southern, the borderline, you can buy property, and there's not a.
No, you cannot. You have to be a national. Now, what happens is there are what's known as registered agents. They're like lawyers who end up buying the property, and then they say, well, we will hold it for you, even though it's in our name. It's supposed to be in trust. But there are story after story after story of people, Americans and British and, French, many different nationalities who have gone down to Mexico, have got these registered agents. They have built homes. And after 10 or 15 years, the government comes in and says, okay, we're taking it.
They can do that.
They can do that.
Scary stuff.
It is. And so what Trump is saying here with China, we have people in this country who are running it very poorly. And it has nothing to do with the fact that China has more of something than we do or less on either side. It just has to do with what we are doing with it.
I disagree because a lot of the product coming from China is made by slaves. And I go to a swap meet and everything's made in China. I go to Walmart, everything's made in China. Everything is made in China. Why? Well, because the people that want to make a profit, they don't want to pay Americans to do the job. So they're paying these people over here in another country to hire slaves to make the product for them.
Yes.
And that, my friends, is the modern day slave. So let's go back to your buddy over here, Donald Trump, promoting his clothing line on David Letterman, and let's see what we find out.
Becomes the great economic leader.
Even if Mitt Romney is elected, he says that
maybe he can turn it around.
Well, do you think he could turn it around?
I think we can.
Do you think Mitt Romney can turn it around?
I think he can.
As a line of clothing. Now, where were these made?
These were made, I don't know where they were made, but they were made someplace. But they're great. It's ties, shirts, cufflinks, everything sold at Macy's, and they're doing great. #1 selling tie anywhere in the world.
#1 selling tie
normally
anywhere
I
in the
wouldn't
world.
wear that shirt,
You wouldn't wear that
we
shirt?
We also have them in white and beautiful white.
Where are the shirts made? Bangladesh.
Well, it's good. We employ people in Bangladesh.
Ties? Where are the ties
They have
made?
to work
These are
too.
beautiful ties.
They are great
The
ties.
ties are made in where? China? Ties are made in China.
That expression is priceless. He's just like, oh well.
And you know what, David, in all fairness, I've been very open about that, and not all of them, by the way, but I've been very open about that. Are you okay? Is the
No,
chair
I'm
was
fine.
made in China.
I know.
Chair was made in
The chair
China.
was made in China.
You buy
Let's
that at
just-
Macy's, by the way.
Let's just shut down the Donald Trump factory in Beijing,
I would love to.
and we'll put up a tie factory in Jamaica, Queens.
I love it.
And we'll make
I
the
love
Donald
it.
Trump
I'm for
tie
it.
there.
I'm for it.
He's for it, but it's not happening. This is an old footage too, so it might be cheating for me. And it's stuck in my head, and it's never left that I can't trust this guy. He's talking about he hates China, that they're taking away our economy. Yet these guys are the same ones that they're making this product for him, and that's what drives me nuts about this guy is that he's a double talker, like every politician. He's supported the Hillary Clintons. The Clintons, and one thing that really bugs me is whenever he's talking on these debates, they call him out like, you've been known to give money to the Clintons, you've been known to help people, to help yourself, and you're basically a lobbyist. They didn't say he's a lobbyist, but they put it in there so you can understand.
Right.
And he agrees to it, and he goes, yeah, what I was doing was to help myself, and I want people to like me, and that's what I do to make a successful business. So he's basically admitting to being a lobbyist, which is the biggest problem with this country. He admits that's the biggest problem with this country, yet he's the guy we're supposed to elect, a lobbyist? It doesn't make any sense. And he's anti-Snowden. He wants to go to war with Russia. He wants to nuke North Korea. He supports Israel. The only thing I agree with is he's pro-guns. That's about the only thing I could agree with the guy, because I'm all about guns. I think it's our last defense mechanism.
It is our last defense mechanism. It's the people's last defense mechanism.
And his he doesn't get a lot of donations or campaign distributions, but what do you need when you're a millionaire or billionaire, whatever the hell he is? So that's just my little way of trying to tell you, man, I don't know if this is a good idea. Are you picking the less of evils?
Well, yeah, that's kind of what we do. But here's the other thing. I'm picking the honest candidate. Trump is honest about all these things. He is honest.
So you mean when you say honest, like he's going to do what he says?
Well, yeah. In other words, he's not making excuses for the fact that they were made in China. He hasn't come up with some slick, polished, public relations type reply to the fact that a tie is being made in China. And I really want to give you a perspective from, back in the day. I remember when I was younger, I was, a little bit younger than you, probably in my teens and early 20s.
Okay.
There was a lot of talk about how everything's being made in Japan. There's slavery over in Japan. Everything's being made in Japan. Mm-hmm. Okay? And as we did trade with Japan, and as Japan's economy grew, there was a difference in what we saw as far as their ability to negotiate. And Japan negotiated themselves out of that, what you might call slave labor, but from that,
It is slave labor.
So then the next thing we heard was everything's coming from South Korea. Everything's coming from South Korea. South Korea, everything's coming from South Korea. And what has South Korea done? Well, then the next thing we heard was everything's coming from Mexico. Everything's being made in Mexico. All our businesses are going to Mexico. All the manufacturing is going to Mexico. Everything's going to Mexico. Well, what has happened there? Now, yes, Philippines, Malaysia, China, Vietnam. Now we're looking at Southeast Asia. And we're looking at countries that will probably do the same thing that Japan did, and Korea, and Mexico. And you gotta look at what America trades. And it's not that hard to do. You can go to the U.S. Department of Commerce website, and you can be a conspiracy theory and say they're just lying to us. But at some point you have to kind of accept data and then kind of wash it through your own mind. And if you look at what the United States exports, it's almost like we're a third world country. We export a lot of grains. We export a lot of raw materials, almost like a third world country. We import a lot of finished goods. We export a lot of ideas, okay? And then we import the finished goods from those ideas. And those finished goods were being, manufactured in Japan and Korea and Mexico and now in Vietnam and Malaysia and Indochina. And there's got to be a point at which we realize that there's a history before us, and we look back and we say, Japan came from a country there was a bombed out shell, wasn't even capable of making toothpicks, and now look at where it's at. The same thing with Korea, and you could say the same thing with Mexico. It wasn't bombed out, but you look at where their economy is now, and really the potential for the economy. And again, it was like Corey was telling us, the Mexican people's worst enemy is their government. Their government is throttling any economic growth down there. So why are people leaving? Well, there's no economic growth. It's the same way with Syria. Now, it's much more severe, but in Syria, why would you stay if your only thought or your only hope is that, the bomb lands next door to you? Okay?
Yeah. Sad. Very sad. So let's take a call real quick. We got the one and only. He couldn't make it in, but he's going to call anyway. Governor.
You're not going anywhere. Let me through. You're not going anywhere. Let me through.
Well, let's start.
Freaking no good mother. Jeez, shut up.
He's still in.
He must be in traffic.
He's in traffic. Let's keep the conversation going. That was.
He's in Southern California traffic.
A heated moment there. All right, let's talk about Benghazi. I kind of told people we were going to talk about Benghazi, and we kind of skipped it. We did talk about it when we were eating and stuff, but let's talk about Hillary Clinton, someone who I can't believe is running for president. I can't believe there's another Bush. I'm so frustrated when I see the same names in the same debates. Just different people.
So then vote for Trump and send a message.
Send a message.
Vote for Trump and send a message.
I refuse. I refuse. So first of all,
a lot of my white friends said that about Obama.
It's not because he's white. It's not because he's white. I don't even look at people with color. But why is there only 5 candidates for this Democratic debate?
Why? Well, I think what people have to see in any of these debates is it's an audition, and in the United States big government needs big business. So like anything else, in a movie, in a play, you have to audition the people that the audience is going to like. And who's the audience in the United States? Big business.
All right, you're acting like these politicians. You're dodging the question. Why is there only 5 candidates? I'm watching these debates, and every time they ask them a question, they go all the way around, and then their time's up, and they ask them the same question. Are you going to answer it? Oh, I want to go all the way back around. No, I'm just kidding. But, yeah, so Hillary Clinton, who went to Yale, she studied law at law school. So she's basically a lawyer, people. She served as the first lady. Can't read my writing. She's for minimum wage. What do you think about the minimum wage?
I think it's just horrible.
$15 an hour.
It's
you're gonna pay a kid $15 an hour. I'm making $13 an hour.
No. The fact that we even have minimum wage now. Again, here you go. You're talking to a person back from the day. Okay, when I was in school, there was no minimum wage. And there was an opportunity for you to sell yourself and get the wage that you felt was deserving. The problem with minimum wage is that it takes our mind away from the reality that government is making it more and more expensive for us to live. And what we do is we look at the minimum wage as a way of bettering our life, when actually, rather than looking at increasing the minimum wage, we should be looking at government making it less expensive for us to live rather than more expensive. And all minimum wage does is give the government a raise, because when that wage goes up, what happens to payroll taxes?
What?
They go up. Because the payroll taxes are a percentage of what you make. So the more you make, the more the government makes.
But Hillary claims that the rich pay little tax and the middle class pay too much tax.
Yes, the rich, like herself, and like Warren Buffett, who thinks that there should be more taxes, they do. They pay very little tax. And the reason for that is not because there's any, laws, particularly, say, with tax laws that allow them to do that. It's basically our legal system. You want to talk about a broke system. You could say the immigration system's broke, but you want to talk about a broke system, you got to look at our legal system.
What's wrong with the legal system?
Warren Buffett has this idea that everybody should pay more taxes, and he talks about his secretary paying more taxes than he does. And the reason for that is that for the last 15 years, I believe, he's been engaged in lawsuits with the IRS. What happens is the IRS says, well, you owe this much, and he says, no, I don't owe this much. And so what he does is he gives, hundreds of thousands of dollars to lawyers to fight it.
Judge, I need an extension to this case.
Yep.
Can you hold on? Or like Hillary Clinton when she said she had a headache, a migraine. I can't tell you about the Benghazi because, my head, I need surgery. I got a tumor or something like that.
Right. And what wealthy people know is that if they can afford lawyers, they can afford, or they have the capability of doing whatever they want. Loopholes. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what Warren Buffett has done. And that's why his secretary pays more taxes than he does. It's because he has tied up in courts constantly. Every year he files his taxes and the government says, you owe this amount. He says no, and he ties it up in court. Now, at some point, he's going to pass. But there are mechanisms where you can pass your wealth on past yourself, so that when the government comes after Warren Buffett, there's not going to be anything there. It's all going to be in the corporations, which live forever.
Or you could just take it to other banks overseas where they never could find out.
Right.
Like Mitt Romney did.
Exactly.
But back to Hillary Clinton. She is against the gun control. I mean, she is against NRA is what I should say.
Right.
She doesn't want you to have guns, people. She doesn't want the big assault weapons to defend yourself when shit hits the fan. She wants you to be defenseless. So for those who don't know, this government official did not use a government email, rather a private email server. She did not use a federal government server, which many believe she violated the State Department's personal protocol for record keeping. In other words, my understanding is that ClintonEmail.com can and has had hackers from Russia attempt to steal information because of the lack of security Hillary's servers have. They're not very well guarded, like a federal one would be. Possibly giving out thousands of classified documents to any hacker out there because, again, who's protecting her servers? So the FBI began investigating, requesting to see Hillary's emails. Hillary gave them 55,000 pages of information via email, but after deleting 32,000 emails, which God knows how many pages that would be.
Exactly.
The question is, James, Was her server a breach in her level of government?
Yes, it was. It was a breach in the level of government. It was illegal, and you got to kind of wonder here. When Nixon was taping what was going on in the White House, and he was told that he had to hand over those tapes, there was a gap. And for some reason, those deletions in the tape became the center for impeachment. And everybody said, Nixon was not worthy of having any political office. Now we have different technology. It's not magnetic tape. It's a magnetic hard drive. And yet those deletions of emails seem to not be as important. We seem to just gloss over it as if, it's no big deal.
Well, her argument is she did ask for permission. She was allowed to have her own private email account for her line of business. It's not against the law to do that. But I guess what you're saying is that she put America at risk having not a better server protected, like a federal one would be.
Correct.
And anyone can get a hold of those documents, putting our country at risk.
Yeah, and here's the thing. First of all, no, she's never answered who she asked. Try and research and find out. She says, well, I asked for permission. I was given permission.
From who?
Yeah, from who? The question was never asked in the committee. And this is why I think the committee was just a witch hunt, because it really wasn't trying to figure out what was going on. Who gave her permission? There's talk, and there has been government, employees that would give the information on the grounds that they don't be identified, that have said it was the chief of staff. Well, the president's chief of staff has no authority. Sure, that is Clinton's boss as Secretary of State. She does have the chief of staff as her boss. But he has no constitutional authority or no legal authority to tell her, yes, that she can do that.
Especially if it's material that is used that can possibly show information that can harm us.
Right. And when she said a personal email server, where was the definition? Personal as in emails that are just to me about my life and things about me that are going on and have nothing to do with the government? Or personal in that I own this server, not the government.
Well, she claims that no email said classified on it, and she was allowed to have it, her own private email. It was not illegal. So her defense is continuously to ask her, would you apologize for your mistake? Well, I don't believe I did anything wrong. I just felt like it was kind of like not the best judgment.
And that brings back to me the days, where Nixon said, I'm not a crook. I didn't do anything wrong. And when they asked him for the part of the tape that got deleted, we never got it. To this day, we've never gotten it. And yet, for some reason, Hillary Clinton's able to say, well, yeah, I might have deleted 32,000 emails, but it has nothing to do with this. I'm not a crook. I've done nothing wrong.
So if, in fact, Hillary violated the classified information, becoming a threat and all to our country, what should the Department of Justice do?
Well, there are guidelines, very similar to the guidelines that, let's say, Snowden would have to undergo if he came back and went to trial for the information that he leaked. Now, in the United States, there's what's known as intent. And and here's an example. If you walk into a bank with a gun and a note that says, I'm going to rob the bank, and then chicken out, turn around and walk out, but as you're walking out, there's a cop that walks in, sees you with the gun, arrests you and finds the note, you are then shown to have intent to have robbed that bank. Now, Snowden specifically did something. He released that information. Now, was it Hillary's intent to release information and cause, harm to the United States? Well, we really don't know. How was she negotiating? We need to see those emails that she deleted to say, how were you negotiating this to show intent? And she knows that those emails are gone.
Yep.
And so
apparently the FBI has been digging, and they have found some that do say classified on it. So they're working on building a case. This is what I've heard last time I researched. But
it needs to be done. It needs to be done, and she needs to be charged with the seriousness that this is.
And really quickly, I don't know the whole scoop on Benghazi. I do know the ambassador was brutally murdered, and a few other people. What are your thoughts on that?
Well,
first time we ever left somebody, didn't come back to help them, right?
Yeah. It's another great disappointment. It's another indication of how our politicians sell short the American people all the time. that ambassador, the people that were there protecting him that also died, those were Americans, and they didn't deserve to be sold short. And the idea that the government wouldn't come to aid because they hadn't talked to everybody to figure out what the political implications would be if they did give them aid. And, the idea that the government would tell everybody involved at the time it was happening and there was a terror incident, and then turn around and tell the American people that it's not. It was just a, political rally that went bad. I mean, you can see where they have once again, and there's an old word for that. It's called fodder. Which means basically shit. There was what was known as cannon fodder in the days when we had cannon, Civil War, and so forth. And if you were cannon fodder, that means you were just left out to be destroyed. And that's what happened. And it's just sad.
Moving on to Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, he says the middle class work more hours for less pay. He wants to raise minimum wage as well to $15. He claims to be a democratic socialist, which means, in his eyes, to look across the world in the fighting, what's going on around the world, and find programs for the middle working class. He wants free health care. How do you feel about that? It's a right, he claims. College should be cheaper, stronger education. He's against the billionaires who fund campaigns. He's a hard believer in climate change. He says it's real. And what else? More people are in jail. Blacks, 51% are unemployed. Browns, 36% unemployed. He's against the NRA, which is why he lost my vote automatically. He wants to mandate background checks and ban assault weapons. Sorry, buddy, you lost my vote. Against Iraq war. Well, it's a little late for that. Should have said that earlier. He believes in Israel, that it should exist. He's a member of the Energy Committee and the Environmental Committee. He's been endorsed by Jesse Ventura, who I like a lot, and Joe Rogan. But his top 5 contributors: Communication Workers of America, $25,500; United Here, $15,000; National League of Postmaster, $12,000; Service Employers International Union, $11,000; National Nurses United, $10,000. Those are his top 5. That's not a lot of money, considering I think Clinton got, with her first contributor, all of that in one.
Yeah.
Goldman Sachs.
It's not a lot of money, and political financing is just a nightmare. There's so many rules involved that it's just unbelievable.
There is?
Yeah, there's the free election, the ethics and campaigns and all this kind of stuff, all these watchdogs. It's just unbelievable. But they always pass laws that allow loopholes. But here's the thing about Bernie Sanders that I don't believe in. I want free health care too.
You do?
I do. I don't want to pay for my health care. Does anybody want to?
I know where you're going with this.
Right now, my health care has tripled in cost over the last 4 years. And Medicare is going up 16%, folks. They're going to take a look at what you're seeing on your paychecks as far as your Medicare deduction, and they're going to take out another 16%. Why? To give you free health care.
Wow. So is it?
Yeah. So, I would love to have free health care. I just don't know how he's going to do it. It just doesn't make any sense to me at all.
So you think he's out of his mind?
He's out of his mind.
What about the legalization of marijuana? That's a good thing.
Well, the way I look at it, we as the common man, the United States, Russia, I guess, was Canadian when they came up with the song "Common Man," but we have such a miserable day-to-day life. Why not let us have some fun and smoke some weed?
Yeah, can we give him a round of applause?
Because I'm not saying I smoke weed.
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
So, marijuana has been known in the state of Colorado and Washington to spark a boost into their economy.
Of course.
And the money is piling in. They're able to help schools, and they're able to pay their taxes and pay more taxes. And
of course.
So I think marijuana is a beautiful thing. I don't know why.
And here's what I want to say about Bernie Sanders and the minimum wage, $15. I said it earlier. I'll say it now. You know, why do we have to raise the minimum wage? Why cannot we increase the amount of economic activity so that there's money available for the things that we really need, and that there are want lists that can be put together, and we can look for funding these things as money becomes available, as economic activity becomes available. Every year it costs more and more to live. And a lot of it is because of bad decisions by government. If we look at water, we'll just look at water. Look how much your water bill's gone up. I am using less water now than ever before, and I am paying 3 times more for it. You know,
Water is insane right now. When I'm
It
driving
is.
down the freeway and I see severe water drought,
Yeah.
like people don't understand the word severe. Like if you get hurt and you're severely hurt, you're in some trouble.
We're in some trouble. and we're not in trouble because there's not enough water. We're in trouble because our leaders have made bad choices when it comes to supplying the water. And so now it costs more money for us to have what we had before. And so now there's talk of making the minimum wage higher to take care of that. My talk would be, let's fix the problems in government that's making it so expensive to live. You know, water is one of them. Electricity is another. I mean, we could just go on and on and on about all the things. Look at education. I mean, it is just unbelievable to me to think that professors and other administrative staff and operations people, you know, think that they should get a 4% raise just because they haven't had one in the last 3 years. Who do you know? I really want everybody to stop and think, who do you know that's had that kind of a raise within the last 3 years? I mean, there are even government, like the post office, federal government agencies like the post office, that, you know, they've just started after the last 6 years giving 1%, 2% raises over a 2 to 3 year period. So let's think about that.
Is that fair though? I mean, is it becoming a trend that, hey, the CEO gets a $1 million bonus while everybody else is still trying to scrape for?
It's a trend, and it's not just, I mean, folks, it's not just CEOs of corporations. Hey, let's take a look at the Los Angeles Fairgrounds. The managing member of the Los Angeles Fairgrounds, you could call him a CEO, which is a government agency. It's you know, funded a lot by the state. You know, his salary last year was $1 million. And of course, his benefits package, I believe they said, totaled somewhere around $40,000 or $50,000. Of course, the first year that he saw that $1 million, the fair lost $3 million. If you go to the LA County Fairgrounds, it's trashed. It's just in really bad repair. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be done, and it's not that there's a lack of activity going on there. There's a lot of money being paid, but the person that's running it pulls out his $1 million first. Now, think about all the people underneath him. What is his secretary making? What is his executive assistant making?
Probably just a little bit more than the smaller guy.
Yeah, and so, you know, these are the kinds of things that we got to look at. We've got to stop saying, well, it's corporations. Yeah, you know, Bank of America, sure.
It's corporations, I tell you.
Let's ask a couple of callers here who've been waiting patiently. Let's plug in 213. 213, you're on the Open Your Mind podcast with the one and only DJ Lou and James. Who's it? I got something for that. Who's on the line, man? What's up?
What's up? It's Governor Wildstar.
Yo, Wildstar, what up, man?
How you doing, bro?
Good, how you doing, dude? You okay in traffic, man? I thought you were going to beat somebody up right now.
Why you say that?
We caught you kind of, like, upset. I plugged you in and you were, like, screaming at somebody.
Oh, damn, man.
Don't worry, I cut it off real quick. But, yeah, you were screaming at somebody, and I was like, Wildstar? And you were like, man, fuck you. No, I'm just kidding. You didn't say that. You didn't say that, but you were just like, get out the way or something like that. I just flipped it real quick. But what's going on, brother? Are you listening to the show?
Yes, sir. I've been battling through this traffic here, but listening, yes, indeed.
How do you feel about James, man? He's voting for Donald Trump, man. What the hell?
He alluded and lost I don't know what's wrong with him, but
Ooh.
he's smoking something that all of us should not be smoking.
The good stuff.
But I've been listening to the conversation, and a lot of good things have been said. A lot of good things that I hope more people would look into. But with regards to the candidates that you've spoken of so far, neither one of them are going to do anything. I mean, especially with the proposal about raising the minimum wage. A lot of people don't even understand economics and how that would affect everything else. I mean, it's just simple mathematics that if I give you more money and I don't have money myself, I have to get that money from somewhere, right? And that's how our economic system works in this country. We're borrowing money from the Federal Reserve. And I don't think too many people understand that even in raising the minimum wage, that means that the Federal Reserve gets to pump up and create more fake money out of thin air to give us. It isn't making the situation any better. It's just a remedy to make us feel better. That's all it is. And that's what all this illusionary game is with money in our country. America needs to wake up, and American residents and citizens need to wake up to realize that their money is fake, it's not going anywhere, and that they're being robbed right under their noses. Their servitude is their money. You going to work every day is you paying off your debt to society. That debt to society has been accrued illegally against your will by the Federal Reserve and by the government that supports them. The only way that we're ever going to be free from it is by getting somebody into the White House that's going to free us from this service-based economy. Okay?
But it's not even the president's job. The president's a puppet.
But again, he's a puppet for who? He's a puppet for Washington. And we've gotten so used to the understanding or brainwashed to believing that the president works for us. The president don't work for us. The president works for the United States of America, which is a corporation. Okay? You have to dig into these things and understand the truth
I
of the
agree.
reality here. The United States of America, the country that you live in, it is a fictitious business, and they use you as an employee to borrow money from a private company called the Federal Reserve.
Damn. James agrees with you on that.
I agree.
So the only way... So now, if you got Hillary saying the same person who, again, is financed by the Federal Reserve, financed by Wall Street and, you know, the big banks, etc., the same people that support her want her to get in office, she's never going to change that. She's off the table. Who's next? Bernie Sanders. Okay, yeah, he's talking about fighting Wall Street, but when he had a chance to repeal Glass-Steagall and to side with Ron Paul against auditing the Fed, he did not. He kept his mouth shut and he said nothing. If anything, he reversed his role and introduced a bill that did the opposite of what the audit the Fed would do.
Woo!
Next person on the list. Who would actually audit the Fed? Who would actually audit the Fed? So we would know that they're, you know, bumping up the bills and inflating everything.
Yeah, where's that money going?
Paul.
Yeah.
So Rand Paul says, yeah, I will audit the Fed. But guess who's his financiers? The Koch brothers. The same capitalists. Again, you got to think about this. We live in a capitalist society, okay? The power of control is never supposed to be in the hands of we the people. It's only supposed to be in the hands of the corporatists that run us, the capitalists that kept us in their servitude by making us slaves through the 14th Amendment, okay? We all think the 14th Amendment was to give us freedom or to basically say, hey, the black man is now free. He no longer is a slave. No, what that did was change the name of the game, and it all has to do with words. Okay? When they introduced the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, it was to make us all slaves. And if you read it carefully, it lets you know that you turn your rights, your inalienable rights given to you by God over to the state. And it's now a privilege. That's why in order to operate your vehicle, okay, which is a vehicle code and legalese terminology, you need to have a license to do so. Why? I got the freedom to travel. I should be able to move freely about by however means I choose.
So let's take that one step
Why do I
further.
need permission from
Right.
the state?
So
Why
let's
do
take
you
that.
need permission from the state?
So let's take that one step further then, and let's talk about when you get on an airplane. I have never been arrested in my life. I have never committed a crime other than maybe stealing some candy when I was a kid. Yeah, I was sped, and got speeding tickets, but why do I have to be searched when I get on an airplane? What have I done? What?
Because you're giving up your right not
Exactly.
to be searched.
Exactly.
You're complying.
Exactly.
People don't understand.
Well,
you're entering a verbal contract.
Exactly.
When you say it's okay, you're giving them permission. You're signing on the dotted line and saying, it's okay to do with me as you please.
Right. You don't have the legal authority. Right. You don't have the legal authority to search me, but since I want to get on that airplane and you control the towers to let that airplane take off, you can search me. And I totally agree with what you're saying. And I'd like to take this a little bit one step further here, if you want to follow me a little bit, when you're talking about, our work is what our worth is. I mean, everybody on this earth, as far as their most valuable asset, it's their time. We only have so much time. We can only use the time that we have for the next day. Once that's gone, it's over. And yet what we see people doing is selling their time for an amount of money that is just ridiculous. And what we see the government doing is taking the money that we're using to represent our time, because if I give you an hour, you give me so many dollars, correct? The government takes that money and makes it worth less and less by doing exactly what you said. Having the printing presses at the Federal Reserve make more of those dollars without even letting us know. We don't really know how much. They have supposedly a balance sheet, but we really don't know how much money the government has printed to make our money worth less. So
obviously a lot, because our dollar is shrinking as we speak.
It is worth hardly anything. And I would just like to use this analogy again. I keep saying, I'm from the good old days. But I remember back in, I believe it was 74, 75, McDonald's used to have a commercial. You could buy a Coke, a fry, and a hamburger for $1, and you could get change back, okay? And the minimum wage at that time was $1.63 an hour, okay? So today, if you go to McDonald's, like I went to McDonald's with Lou today, and we had lunch, and we got
Carl's Jr.
Carl's Jr. We got hamburger, fries, and Coke. Mine was $6.89 by the time we got out of there. $7. What's minimum wage? $9. Where have we gotten since 1972?
Well, Star, would you like to elaborate?
Well, I want to jump back in this by saying, what's going to happen when you go to McDonald's and it's $40 for that meal? Okay?
Minimum wage will be $80.
No. Exactly. And they're going to keep bumping up everything else to make us feel like it's all a remedy, people, just to make you feel like things are better.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
What the Federal Reserve right now is currently proposing is to raise the interest rate. This happens, everything's going to skyrocket. Everything.
And the difference...
The loan that you have, the dollars in your pocket, the food that you're buying, everything's going to skyrocket. And again, people aren't paying attention to what's going on. So that even if this does happen, and you have a presidential candidate saying, well, it's okay, I'm going to make sure you have more money in your pocket, okay, so you can afford these things. No, to begin with, that isn't supposed to be. So the cap and trade and the checks and balances starts and ends with Congress. And right now, they aren't doing their job.
And I'm looking at
the only way that we have a chance is by removing these corrupt politicians.
I agree.
All of your senators or House representatives that are standing by idly watching this happen, they know exactly what's going on, especially all of your representatives that are in the House right now that voted for the budget and approved that current budget that the dictator Obama signed into law. They all should be arrested for treason.
I totally agree.
And that's just the bottom line.
I spent a couple
because,
days.
Again, when you're fully aware of a criminal act, that makes you completely liable. Like you were saying about driving in the car, and if you get pulled over by the cop, then you've given your authority over to that officer by complying with him. So that's exactly what's happening here in our country. Everything that they're doing, we're giving them our permission to do this.
Yeah.
So we got to, again, use our power, stand up, say no, and at this point, it's all about rebelling because people are pissed off, but they don't want to do anything about it.
And
they talk about how bad the government is, how corrupt it is, how much they're feeling they're being stolen from and trampled over by government, but yet they aren't doing the damn thing.
They elect the same people year to year.
They aren't doing anything.
They elect the same people year to year. And I have to say, this is why I believe that if we elect someone like Trump or even Carson, it sends a message. It's an outsider. Basically what I'm saying. It's an outsider, someone who is out of the belt.
It's not being in.
Wait. I gotta kill your argument, bro, because you are all wrong. Trump, Carson, they are not outsiders. They are part of this game. They're puppets too. Okay, they're propped up, selected candidates to fill the void. And again, it's like a puppet game. Put up all of the puppets and see which one the public likes the most.
It's so true.
As soon as they like that public, that's the one that they're going to throw their support behind.
Right. It's the audition.
Bush gets the candidacy, if Bush gets the candidacy, they'll throw up Trump on a ticket to make the Trump supporters happy, or Carson, or whoever else comes in second.
Right.
When it comes to voting, because again, polls are not vote, people. We have yet to vote. The American public have yet to go to the polls.
This guy's making a lot of sense.
These polls mean nothing.
Wow.
I can create a poll.
And who controls the polls? Who controls the media? Who's in charge of all of this stuff?
Exactly.
Exactly.
The same people that want to create the opinion for you.
So
of course they're going to tell you, hey, this person is winning, because they want you to believe that. So
let's get some dialogue. I mean, when these puppets are hand-selected and this is the only option we have, and the person that feels hopeless about, change, and they pick the less of evil, what do you say to them? I mean, because we can't just, drop everything and run to the White House and occupy? What's the next step?
The next step is to get on the phone. I was talking to a coworker today, okay? And she was telling me how she got a ticket, and I was explaining to her how basically she could use a UCC code, write this on the ticket, to object on paper before she has to go to court. And a lot of people don't know this, but again, we're living in a dualistic society. We're thinking we're people when we're not people. We're looked at as being
numbers.
Being part of this corporate society. We're looked at as numbers, dollars.
Yep.
And again, so when you get pulled over by a cop and you're part of this legal system, when the cop asks you for your driver's license and you give it to him, that's you contractually saying, I agree. So you're at that point agreeing to the contract at that point. So when the cop gives you a ticket, it's kind of too late, so to speak. But what you can do is you can say, I feel threatened by this person coming up to me with a gun and saying I must pay them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write on this ticket that I feel threatened and let them know before it gets to court. So, again, I'm explaining all of these things. It's a lot to get into detail about. It's a whole other show and then some, but I'm explaining these things to her, and she said, yeah, but, you know, it's going to cost me money if I got to go to court, and I'm going to lose the money if I don't go to work. I said, which is it going to be? Are you going to continue to be a slave and hand over your freedoms as an American to these people? Or are you going to be their subject and go go fight and fight for your rights, pretty much?
Definitely.
And stand up for yourself.
I've done the same thing before.
When would I do that? She said, when would I do that? I'm like, you got to make time. She's like, well, how can I learn about these things? I said, you watch TV, don't you? Yeah. I'm like, okay.
Turn that
those
shit off.
times that you're sitting around watching the idiot box, turn it off and turn on something that you can learn these things from, you know? And she's like, well, I got kids, and, you know, once I get home from work, I only got so much time. I'm like, yeah, but that personal time for you, don't use it to just be idle. That's exactly what they want. You have plenty of time to be idle. And as long as they keep you in this service-based economy, you're never going to have time to learn.
That's right.
Open up your mind and question these things that my teacher told me.
It's
because
a fight.
You know what? What your teacher told you may not actually be true. It may be wrong. And I don't think a lot of people even question that because they're used to being slaves to authority.
James,
I have always had a problem with authority. I always will, because I understand what the power of authority that God has put in me. He let me know that there is no other authority above me other than God. You see what I'm saying?
We do.
And
Hey, Wellstar.
A lot of people lost that mentality of themselves. They give that power of God over to the state. Now the state has control over you.
Wellstar, that's why
Yes,
I
sir.
believe in you, bro. That's why I'm with you 100% during your campaign, and I believe in what you're saying. I'm 100% with you, and I march proudly with you, man. This guy's running for governor, so he's 100% committed. I'm 100% with him. Governor Wellstar, I'm going to talk a little bit more with James, but thank you for your input. It's all on record, and what you're doing is a great thing, brother.
Thank you so much. I'd like to thank you all for letting me have the mic for a moment.
It was great talking with you. I
thank
enjoyed
you.
talking with you. Luke,
Go ahead.
religion is important.
And you were mentioning something that we are talking about. I don't know if you want to get into it, about how it doesn't add up. Some of it doesn't add up.
Yeah, a lot of religion for me doesn't add up. And I think there needs to be a little bit of history first. I grew up in a family who had a parent that was Catholic and another parent who was Lutheran. So my first exposure to religion was years after being raised as a Lutheran. The realization that my father was Catholic, and because he married a Lutheran woman.
What is a Lutheran? That sounds like Lucifer or something.
It does, doesn't it? So there is a priest by the name of Martin Luther.
Martin Luther King?
No, Martin Luther. Martin Luther was the name of the priest,
Right.
And he was a Catholic priest, and he was fed up with a lot of things that were happening in the Catholic Church, and he wanted to reform the Catholic Church. And we can get into a lot of things, about the Augsburg,
That's like a whole other language
seminary, but anyway, it was basically the first split from the Catholic Church, and basically the third church of
90
Christ.
seconds.
We're dragging it into overtime. Hey, callers that are calling in, press 1 and I'll buzz you in. I want to hear from you guys. You guys have been loyal listeners, and I'd like to hear what you got to say and what you thought about some of the show, and if we can do anything to improve it. How do we sound? Do we sound decent? Are the volume levels nice? Do I talk too damn fast? Do I need to slow it down? Sorry, dude. Go ahead.
So
Keep going.
no. So what I'm saying is that that's kind of the history of Martin Luther.
60 seconds.
In that, okay, I'm trying to get down to 60 seconds.
No. That's just that lady, but we can record as long as we want. It doesn't matter what she says. She's not in charge of me.
So he tried to reform the Catholic Church, and what they did is they kicked him out.
Why?
And because they
try to change it.
Hey, if you're not with us, you're against us.
That reminds me of like Charles, what's that blind dude? He used to play the piano.
Ray Charles.
Ray Charles. He started making music that sounded gospel.
Yes.
And people were getting pissed off. They're like, "Hey man, you're making music that's supposed to be about God, and you're talking about other things." And the same thing with Stevie Wonder. Like all these dudes, and they're like, "You guys are," and James Brown. Like, you guys are not making music that's like tasteful. Marvin Gaye, like all these dudes that I have a lot of respect for. I look back, go, wait, they kind of changed the game. They kind of changed They kind of changed what the music was all about. So, what was the moral to that story, or if there was one?
Well, the moral to the story was that my first, difficulty with reconciling what was happening with religion was that because I had one parent that was one religion and another parent that was from another.
Were they hardcore
religion? The Catholic Church, pretty much said you do it our way or you don't belong. So my dad said, fine, I will leave the Catholic Church. And,
he was one of those dudes that was just like, I'm gonna have to separate because I don't belong.
Yeah, basically, yeah. If that's the way you're gonna be, happy wife, happy life. So my mother raised us as Lutherans, and to me that was the hardest thing to reconcile. But that's what opened my mind to questions about religion.
Did you fear hell for a long time?
I never really feared hell, and I never really could understand why religion has to be so fearful.
Sounds to me like you were never spanked as a child.
Well, my parents were teachers, they were both teachers, which, they had some very interesting ideas, way back then.
They were probably all spanked out by the time they got home.
Yeah.
Because they had the paddles back then.
Yeah, there were times, I was spanked by a principal, and I was spanked by my father, and I didn't turn out none for the worse of wear here. Yeah, you heard that quite a bit when I was a kid, I did cause a lot of trouble, but there was just a lot of reconciliation that I had to do in my mind. It took me many years. It took me over 30 years thinking about religion. I've worked for churches, had positions very close to the leaders in churches, including the ordained members of those churches.
Ordained means what?
That they were ministers or priests. In other words, that there was some body here on earth that said, hey, you're worthy of being, one of us because you drink the Kool-Aid.
Right after I kiss you.
Yeah. So,
I'm just kidding out there. That's really disrespectful.
No, it's true.
It's true. You kissed?
It's very true. I mean, it's not just in, Christian religion, but
and that's why I think the problems with Catholicism, and I say, God damn it, that's not a nice word to say, but is that you kind of pressure people into being something, and a priest has to be the higher standard of everyone. This dude can't even touch a woman, like he can't even have a family. Right. Like what do you expect this guy to do?
Right. And so, talking about Catholicism, that's something that I was never really able to reconcile because here's the idea. I mean, even if I try to be intuitive about it, I come up with the idea of, wait a minute, God created man and saw it wasn't good for man to be without woman, so he created Eve. This is in the Bible. This is in the Jewish Quran and also the Christian Bible.
Right.
And yet, for some reason, a pope has decided that it's not good for man to be with woman and prevents priests from being able to have a wife. Or
it's like one dude thought of that, and then like for years and years and years, because you have to follow the Catholic way, or you get separated. And back then, where are you going? Where are you going to go?
What made that man know more than God? Because God said it wasn't good to have man be alone and created woman so that it would have a companion. But yet some man comes along and says, no, God, you don't got it right. I know more than you. Wow. We're not going to allow our members to have relationships with women. Totally nuts. This is the kind of stuff, as I went through life and I saw, and I don't want to just pick on the Catholic religion. I could pick on many, many religions, and Protestant religions as well as Jewish, even Muslim religions.
But there are words I've heard before that state that back then people couldn't even read, so they kind of looked for the priest for answers.
Right.
And as soon as people started learning how to read, they were able to start thinking for themselves.
Right, and actually, I think more than reading was the fact that they could have reading material. I mean, up until the invention of the printing press by Guggenheim, priests would spend 30 years writing a Bible, and that Bible would be given to the priest that took his place. Well, where's the Bible for the parishioner? There are none, because it just takes 30 years to do a Bible.
And they come with the erasers where they're like, I don't like this part. We're going to just change this and add a couple of those. And I kind of think that's how it is. And it sounds disrespectful to someone that's really hardcore belief.
It does. It does sound. And here's the thing. There are fundamental beliefs that we always profess. No matter whether you're a Protestant, a Catholic, if you're Greek Orthodox, I mean, in the Christian religion, and I mean, we could talk about others as well, but in the Christian religion, there's certain things that we profess, right? I mean, we say that we have to have Jesus because we fall short. The truth of the matter is, we do. We all fall short. And if we are unable to be perfect, and there's evil in all of us, why could it not be that man added a whole bunch of stuff that wasn't supposed to be there?
Wow. Kind of manipulated it.
And manipulated it to where he wanted it to be. And there are examples over and over in the Bible that show that people who were chosen by God rebelled against God, did the exact opposite of what God said. And why could not have been happening in so many other instances, like during the writing of the Bible, where there's a man that just rebelled and said, no, I don't think women are important. They have no value in society. Therefore, we will write nothing about women, even though it takes a woman
to make a baby.
It took a Virgin Mary to have Christ.
Right.
And yet, the significance of women in the Bible is obsolete. And so there's a lot of strange things. I've talked to people about this before, and I could be considered blasphemous, but I've often wondered why, when you think about the Last Supper, when Jesus told the disciples, to have bread and to have wine in remembrance of me, that it got turned into, well, wait a minute now. After you've gone to college for 4 years, and then you've gone to a seminary, and then some body of men here on earth have decided that you're worthy, now you can do this in remembrance of me. You're the one that can pass out the wine and can pass out the bread. But until you do that, no, this was an open practice among Jesus' disciples, who were tax collectors, who were people who had converted and were not necessarily the chosen ones, of society at the time. And it's always just kind of surprised me that, one religion will say, you can do this in our church, and only if you are part of our church. If you're not part of our church, you can't do this. Communion's an example, marriage, etc., etc. It's just never really sat with me. The other problem that I've had is Christ was incredible. He really was. He was a healer. He did some really amazing things. And I'm not saying that he didn't exist as a divine being or a type of a god, but he was not a god. We were told in the Old Testament and by the books that the Jews hold, that God is our only God. He's a jealous God. There's only one of him. He's the only one. And yet, for some reason, you got this literally insane Roman Empire who killed his son because his son had sex with his wife.
Jesus had a son?
No, this Roman Empire.
Oh.
This Roman emperor who killed his son because his son had sex with his wife, locked everybody in a room and said, unless you can reconcile the idea of Christ being a God and God saying he's the only God and this Holy Ghost thing, I'm going to kill all of you. And so they come up with this, a Trinity. We have this Trinity. And it's really not in the Bible. There's really no explanation of this Trinity in the Bible. It had to do with the Roman Empire, a Roman emperor who had to sell this religion to his people who were used to having many, many gods, but yet there was this conflict among the Christians at the time that there was only one God, that there can't be many gods. And all of a sudden we have the Trinity. Never made sense to me at all.
Well, when I hear all these things you're saying, I'm sure you have tons of experience with this, and I'm this young buck coming in going, huh?
Yeah.
But one thing I just have to say is, you know, are you ready for this? All these tales and all these things about good deeds and bad deeds, it's to teach us and program us to do what? Do right. Just do what's best
right
for humanity, and try to understand that there's a ton of us on this planet, and we're what, 30% mass, 70% water, or what's the numbers on there?
Yes, very close.
We're
to that,
water balloons, man. We can be popped at any time by a sharp object or a bullet. I mean, we have to get along while we're on this planet for this short stay. Involuntarily walking around, I don't know why I'm here, but I'm here, and I figured out I don't want to be miserable. I've been poor, I've been homeless, I've had to help people I didn't know how to help, and now I had to be the leader. Been pushed out there to be the leader with the boulder on his back. Out of all this, I can tell you, I just want to be happy now. You know, I just want to enjoy my life for the short stay that I'm here. I want to make the best. I want to help people. I've helped tons of people, and I'm not trying to brag, but I feel good when I do it. Sometimes I tell myself, I really don't think I want to help this person, but after I do it, I go, God, it felt so good. It felt so good to let someone else smile. You know, and it brings joy to me when I see someone else smile. So when I hear the word Jesus, and if he says forgive people that are crazy or evil and they want to hurt, like he's trying to say, like, if we all thought that way, this world would be completely different. So unfortunately, we have the Muslim type attitude, is like, you push me, I'm going to push you right back, which I could respect. But I would love to live a life without having to feel that violence and you know, let's fight. But like when it comes down to it, like my boy Governor Wildstar was saying, like, we have to get upset. This is not fair. The slide is tilted, or the scale is tilted, and we're losing everything. And we have to provide for the next generation. What are we leaving behind? Fracking, cracked, destroyed earth, a lack of resources, no more water. What's going to happen? Because you say we have water, but when you look at the water that we're provided by Nestle, it's not even water. They add all these ingredients to it. They give you like 2% of its water, and the rest is all other stuff made up.
Yeah, and that's, you know, that's again, that speaks to a whole different issue of, you know, some of the things in the areas that we fall short in. You know, we're all very greedy. We're extremely greedy.
By human nature, right?
By human nature, extremely greedy. You know, the idea of, you know, the 7 deadly sins, this is not anything new. These are...
What's the 7 deadly sins?
Well, there's sloth. There's
What's
jealousy. Sloth is, you know, you sit around and you watch television, you watch
I do that
TMZ.
all the time. Oh, I hate TMZ. I can't stand TMZ. If I had the chance.
You know, sloth is different throughout the history. You know, I mean, depending upon what time you live in. Today, you could say, you know, it's playing video games. You know, it's
not productive.
Not productive. So, and there's jealousy and
what's the other ones?
Well, there's dishonesty.
So basically, everything that's just kind of a negative.
Yeah. Anything is kind of negative, and I don't want to get too involved in the 7. What I want to say is that I think the key is, like you said, we all want to be able to live together, and I think what religion tries to do is tell everybody what the commonality is among all of us. But what happens is when you go back into history, you find people who corrupt that message. And for control and, you know, for their own personal gain, which is a you know, narcissism is a sin, a deadly sin. You know, it's where you put yourself above anybody else.
I'm better than you.
Yeah. You know, we see people corrupting that, and even if you look at Islam, you know, there really is a lot of things in that religion that are very good, and the idea that we look at the Sunni and the Shiite as the only Muslims out there, you know, we forget to look at the Kurds, who actually were practicing Islam before the Sunni and the Shiite, and that's one reason why the Sunni want to eliminate the Kurds, because they have an opposing theory of their religion. That's why they want to eliminate Christians. Again, they want to take control of this. Excuse me, they want to take control of this, and they create misery for everyone. And I think if we look at the idea of religion as being a way of seeing the commonality of all of us, we kind of get closer to that happiness that we're looking for.
What happens when we die, James?
Yeah, I don't really know, and I think there's a lot of things that we're not meant to know. We will never know. I mean, I could get into some stories about some quantum physics ideas that are coming out, and I had to watch this program 3 different times. It's called Particle Fever. It's a documentary that was on PBS. I had to watch it 3 times to actually get it, and I was thinking to myself,
that's awesome though that you go, I want to understand this. Let me rewind. I do that when I listen to these politicians. I do that when I read a word.
Yes.
I go in the dictionary and I look at it and I'm like, I didn't understand. Let me read it again. I didn't understand it. Let me read it again. Let me try to break this thing down to my interpretation. Isn't that what it is though?
Yes.
What you really kind of are confident in?
It's a common understanding. Am I understanding what the person is telling me? That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that common understanding. What do I need to do to understand what he's saying to me? And the speaker, well, really is that burden to help that along. In other words, he has to speak to the audience.
He has to slow down.
He has to slow down, maybe use different words.
It's because, like, when I'm hearing you talk, when I'm hearing you talk, like, you're using these words, like you said, your kids, they go, what does that word mean? I do the same thing. I'm like, pause. James, what does that word mean real quick? Because you don't really recognize the audience you're talking to. You've been on this planet, decade after decade, and you're looking back going, like, I've learned so much. I forget what was it like on step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. So whenever I try to talk in general when I use my words so that anyone could understand what I'm saying. And I know big words, but I don't want to use a big word because a big word is what? A bunch of words piled into one.
Yeah.
So I try to really slow it down and get people to understand where I've started, and I guess that's because I helped raise 7 kids on my own, and it helped me become a leader, and I recognized, hey, I'm talking to a 4-year-old right now. Probably the best thing to do is to try to get common sense in her brain to understand things, which is very hard to do.
It is. It's hard to do, and I it's interesting that you should say that. That's criticism that I accept, and it's good to have that feedback, and we should all have people that we can trust to give back, the information.
Well, I just look at you and I go, wisdom. I mean, this dude's been here for a long time. Double of the lifespan that I've been here. So what does that say close to double the lifespan? Like, what have you seen in your eyes over the years? I mean, the time from beginning to middle to end, all the ups and downs, the roller coasters you've been on, It's
something that, we've kind of lost in today's society. We tend to look at people who have money and say, oh, those are the people that have wisdom because they knew how to make money. When in truth, that's not real. I mean, people who constantly try and seek the truth and try and open their minds to others around them, they're the ones that gain the true wisdom, no matter how rich or poor they are.
Yeah, I used to just sit there and listen to people talk. And I used to be the one who wanted to always talk, but then I stopped and I'm like, I sound stupid. Let me hear what these people... And then now whenever I meet somebody that's older than me, I just stand by them and I'm like, hey, let me hear something. Go ahead and spill something for me because I know you got something in there that's going to make me go, damn, like I didn't even know that. I'm always learning. I'm always surprised to be learning and even reinterpreting. I remember standing by 2 older ladies and going, man, why can't TV be like it was at I Love Lucy?
Yeah,
and everyone I've always told you, they would always agree, like, hey, they slept in separate beds, respectful. But these 2 older women looked at me like I was nuts. They both gave me this weird face, and I'm going, what did I say? They're like, Lucy was like one of those women that just was submissive, very.
Yes, submissive would be a good word for it.
She submitted to everything. Yes. Like she was afraid of her husband. She was scared to ask him anything.
Yes.
Like that's not empowerment to women. And I'm looking at him going, oh shit, you're right. Like what the? But I guess the whole idea of like the television show of like sleeping in separate beds, it wasn't perverted. It was respectful. It was funny. I guess that's where I was going with it.
Yeah.
But what they were saying was a whole different view I never even thought of. So it was amazing. Every day I'm learning. Every day I'm seeing people. I can't fathom what I'm doing on this planet yet. I'm blessed to be here with you. One of the guys I like talking to. Talked to you many times, but it's great to have you sitting in this room and talking to the world, man. I mean, this is something that's captured in the moment. It's not going anywhere. It's something that we're sharing, and it will stay here for forever. The internet videos do not disappear. They stay. They're frozen in time.
That's true.
So as the whole world is moving around right now, people are doing drugs, they're partying, they're having sex, they're fighting, they're doing all these things. We're freezing the moment. And we're pausing it. Well, all of them are doing something. We're sitting here and talking about all those things. It's amazing.
Yes,
It's amazing.
It is. It is. It really is. And you know, I'll give you a little insight to fears of older people, at least people like myself who I seek out. And, you know, as you said, when you find older people, you like to listen to them, you like to talk with them, you like to accept ideas and see what the differences are in the time. I like to do the same thing. But one of the fears I have is when it becomes, or it gets to the point where I am the oldest. Who else is going to be there for me to talk to?
Wow. Or to look up to.
To look up to.
And to go, you've experienced that.
And at some point, that's going to come. It's going to come, and it comes for everybody.
Yeah.
It comes for everybody. And those are some of the fears that, you know,
like you're all alone.
People have, yeah.
In a sense. I remember
older people have that.
Joe Rogan, he's like a co-host, a podcast host, and he mentioned like the people that have all invented things, the very high intelligent, like these guys create things so complicated, like this interface that I have in this computer and things that like are very, very critically thought of. What happens when they're gone and society gets dumber and dumber and people don't know how to repair things that are needed to be repaired and electricity and the power grids and like what happens when we're dumb and we cannot figure these things out anymore? Do you know how to open your phone right now and repair it if it were broken?
Well, no, I could not. I could not. But you know,
I'm not saying you're stupid, but that's how deep it is.
You're right. And you know, there is some truth to that. But I've got to say, when I was younger, and I don't know how Joe was, old Joe is, but and I don't even want to know because I want to make these statements here first before I find out. But you know, when I was younger, I used to have the same fears. You know, but then I realized as time went on, you know, these things come. They come. When I was in junior high, we had to take typing. And I used to think how stupid it was to take typing. I'm never going to be a secretary. But now I look at it and go, wow, man, I can type like 40, 50 words per minute, and I'm on a computer, and I can actually do pretty good.
Yeah, a lot of people can say the same thing.
And so they just come. And I don't want to get really into this idea of particle theory and so forth, but...
What is particle theory?
Particle theory is the idea of where things come from in our universe. You know, where did we start from? You know, there are theoretical physicists and there are experimental physicists. And here's an interesting kind of thing that was going on in the last 30 or 40 years. And that was theoretical physicists had these ideas of where the universe was, the type of universe that we had, you know, what was in the universe as far as energy and matter. And there was another group that had another idea, and they were going along in two separate directions, really. And the experimental physicists came along and said, well, let's do an experiment and see if we can figure out which one's right. So they built this huge particle collider in CERN, and they collided particles. And what they realized was that neither one was right. That actually the results that they got from this experimental physicist and this collider in CERN was that there's something else. There's a different direction than what everybody thought. So a lot of people would think, well, who's going to come up with those new directions? Who's going to... Well, already there are physicists, theoretical physicists, who are looking at that and saying, wow, that really excites me. Let's see what direction we can go with that. And a lot of the other physicists that have spent 30 or 40 years working on these others, they're like, wow, okay, well, you know, I'm done. See? But yet, there's something moving forward. And there are guys...
That's got to just kill them, though, how hard they work to...
Yeah, and there's this guy, his name is Paul Higgs. And he believes that there was a particle called the Higgs particle. And I won't get too far into this, but it's kind of like an atom or proton, neutron, right? But we've actually moved way beyond that, and we've gone to these other pieces of matter, and one of them is called the Higgs particle. Well, he was working on this in the late 60s and early 70s. And there was no way to really prove that what he was thinking about was correct, but he worked on formulas and threw up problems, and he worked on this and worked on this and worked on this. It wasn't until the CERN collider was built and used that they discovered the Higgs particle.
Wow.
He was still alive, barely.
That's nuts. Imagine your whole life trying to prove something, and then by the time you're old and like senile, you're like, hello, and then they're like, you've done it.
You've done it.
You were gonna be a millionaire, and now you pass away or something.
Yeah, and there are a lot of young people that were in the audience when it was proven, and they're now excited and they're moving forward.
Yeah,
with
it's like
developing
Albert
this
Einstein.
idea.
Like no one thought his stuff was,
No one thought his stuff was
way ahead of
right.
his time.
Yeah,
dude.
he was way ahead of his time, and he is now kind of, because he's passed. I almost compare it to like Brett Favre and Peyton Manning. I mean, Brett Favre used to have the record for the most yards thrown, but he got out of the game, and so now somebody's passed him up, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way it is with Albert Einstein. He did have for the longest time
all the records,
but now, of course, he's passed, and now there's people who've come along, and a lot of his ideas are.
I heard Tesla was like one of the first guys to come up with great ideas, but Edison was like the popular one because he could make things that could actually make a profit for himself instead of for everyone else. Like that new Tesla battery that came out, it's amazing. It could power up a whole house with solar panels and stuff like that. Like this battery alone is going to change the whole game because these electricians, all this electricity that we have to pay for, can be provided for free through solar.
Yeah. It's interesting to see the way things go. And again, Edison. We're taught that Edison is this great, American, this great industrialist, and then the truth of the matter is, when you look at it, he was nothing more than a usurper, similar to somebody trying to take the throne of a king. That's kind of what he was. He would take the ideas of what people worked on, and he would take them as his own. And there's a lot of things out there that I believe could have really helped society. But because of people's greed and desire to own it all, so to speak, these things haven't been available for advancement to move our society forward.
Definitely. Hey, James, thanks for being on the show. Real
Thank
quick,
you.
who's your predicament? Who's going to win presidency? Not just your pick, but who do you think will really win? I think Ben Carson is going to win. He's another Obama. He sounds like a soft-spoken, well-spoken man, and we're not ready to go back to white. And that's not speaking from a racist point of view. I think that's just the way it's going to be for a while.
Well, here's how I look at it, and I think that all elections, kind of what the candidate for governor that we had on here,
Governor Wellstar.
Governor, I believe it's like he said. These are auditions that are occurring, and you have to get your base, and so in order to get your base, you have to say things that they're going to like. And so the things that Trump is saying, the things that Hillary is saying, they're very, very far out there. Same way with Sanders. They're very, very far. They're developing their base. So when you ask me who do I think is going to become president, I'm going to say who's doing the best job at developing their base, okay, for this stage of the audition. And I would have to say it's Trump.
You believe Trump 100%?
I believe Trump is doing the better job of building the base. Now, that's not all, that elections are about.
Right.
But...
Like Wellstar said, we haven't voted yet.
We haven't voted yet.
These polls are all propaganda.
These polls are all propaganda. We haven't voted. And the craziest thing that I see all the times is, they'll say, oh, in the poll, someone's up 6%. Great. But the margin for error is plus or minus 3%. So the poll could be off 6%, but yet they're acting like, somebody's up 6% in the polls.
Strictly propaganda. So you think Trump will win it then? There you have it.
I really do. If he continues to build the base, and then once he gets the nod by the Republican committee, I think then what he does is he goes and builds out the coalition.
All right. Hey, well, I say vote for these nuts. He got 9% in the polls. We don't know who this guy is, but his message is clear. Congress should not be able to spend more than it takes to taxes, whatever that means. All right, we're out. Vote for these nuts. Thank you, James.
You're welcome. Thank you.
It's a pleasure always.
Thank you.
Man, you went the distance with me today. That was a great distance we went. See, that's what I love. I mean, if we were like getting stuck and had nothing to talk about, me and you, we go like peanut butter and jelly, man. We just,
so if you think you're too old, you're thinking that you're too cold. You gave up on your true goals, the system. I'm giving you a new soul. You're never ever too old to manifest your true goals on the system. So if you think you're too old, you're thinking that you're too cold. You gave up on your true goals, the system. I'm giving you a new soul. You're never ever too old to manifest your true goals on the system.
You're an open-minded dude.
Yeah, oh no, I'm sorry. Hey, how you